What I have here is a Percussion Howdah pistol. Some really nice engraving, real simple engraving on the hardware when you look at the lock plate and the hammers. It goes well with the checkering on the wrist that's worn, but still there. It's, I mean, it's the kind of checkering that you see on a lot of these originals. It's not super fine. It's been carried, it's been used, it's a little dinged up. But to me, that adds to a lot of the allure of this kind of muzzleloader. It's nice, but not too nice. Something to note on this Howdah is we have a horn nose cap, which isn't something that you see a whole lot of. I don't have any indications of what kind of horn, but it is neat to see a horn nose cap on this. There's some translucency in it, and it's well aged just like the rest of the pistol. The lock and the triggers on this are really solid, really tight. I mean, you can hear that. Half cock and full cock there. It's been really well cared for. Just those internals are real solid in there. If you've seen the original Williams blunderbuss that I have in my personal collection, this Snap Bayonet will look a little similar. It's a very similar mechanism, albeit a little more refined than the earlier blunderbuss. You can see on the top here we have a release in between both of the Percussion hammers that releases this Snap Bayonet. It launches out from this spring here, which is on the underside of the bayonet, and catches here out at the end of the muzzle so that you can use this to skewer a tiger or something when you're in the Indian bush on your elephant. This is an English-made Howdah, like you see a lot of the Howdah pistols. The only markings on it are London. There are Birmingham proofs on the barrel. We have some really nice traditional engraving around all of the hardware. Even the hammers themselves have kind of your traditional fish motifs engraved into them. The barrel tang and screws also seem to be treated with some engraving, and we have the traditional pineapple on the trigger guard here where it's inlet. This isn't kind of a museum piece. This is something that would have been carried and used as personal protection, you know, kind of like what we think of, you know, a Glock or a Ruger today, you know, when it comes to concealed carry or personal self-defense, except for these were used for much bigger game. I'm a particular fan of the engraving that we have on the lock plates. The lock plates themselves aren't totally covered, but it's just, you know, some nice engraving patterns kind of at the front, middle, and the rear of the lock plate, as well as on the hammer and the hammer bolt there. It's just a nice working muzzleloader. I mean, this isn't something that you would necessarily see as, you know, high art. This is more of kind of a working man's or a working class era Howdah is what I would call it. Rock Island describes it as London mark on the barrel rib with Birmingham proofs on the bottom of the barrels, and the initials TC neatly inscribed in the butt. The bayonet is 7.5 inches long in overall length and springs into place when the retainer on the upper tang is pulled back. A swivel-mounted ramrod is mounted below the barrels. There is some simple scroll and border engraving. The stock has a horn forend cap, German silver escutcheons, a checkered wrist, and a flared pommel. We can see here at the top of the barrel rib the London markings, as well as some really nice engraving that is, you know, I think kind of sadly covered by the bayonet, but looking at the engraving there, compared to the quality of the engraving on the lock plate itself, maybe it's better that, that it's covered up by the bayonet. Both triggers and both hammers on this are super solid. I love that snap that we hear on either hammer, going into half cock like that. It's just a neat piece. I mean, if you're into British and Indian history at all, this is a really fantastic era of muzzleloaders. When you get into these big handgun muzzleloaders, basically, I mean, this is just a hand cannon, so to speak, for use to keep tigers and other predators away in the jungle. Overall, this is just a neat piece. I think these muzzleloaders, you're starting to get into kind of the end of the key muzzleloading era. With these, muzzleloading starts to get a little weird, but this is a far cry from kind of the American long rifle in the flintlock era. There were flintlock Howdahs, but this is kind of your iconic look at a Howdah here. And it's really neat to hold in the hand and to get up close and personal with it. If you're interested in this, Check out the Rock Island Auction social media pages. They'll have a ton of really great photos, much better than I can produce here, showing the exquisite history of this piece. This isn't attributed to anybody really important or anything, but when you look at this and see the nicks and dings in it, and the overall just well-aged patina on this muzzleloader, you can really tell that this is carried by somebody doing something. It's just a neat piece overall.